somewhere in Nevada, where everybody wanna play the slots, win it big, grab a cold one, take a swig. And somewhere in Nevada, where everybody wanna be on TV, living large, I've got $1 million, I'm a star. And somewhere in that big wide desert, there are sparkling lights. And somewhere in that glowing city, people pick and fight. Las Vegas, yeah, Las Vegas. Well, boys run on batteries, but girls, you gotta plug them in. And boys come from factories, and girls, you gotta let them win.
Hello, and welcome back to a special episode of Darius Reviews, where daring to review is what I do. You know what? I've been wanting to talk about this series for a while now, so let's not waste any time. The G0ATFAC3 Corner is a show created by Roxy Stars, who I've gotten to know over the few years that the series was periodically releasing, when the story revolves around G0ATFAC, or Avery Pixels, an up-and-coming tube TV star who plays games and uses his own game-breaking abilities to entertain his audience. This series was inspired by other review shows like Atop the Fourth Wall and Angry Video Game Nerd, as well as webcomics like Homestuck and Homestar Runner. If I had 2 nickels. The series, at least at the beginning, is a pastiche on usual review shows. But that being said, taking a look at this in full would take longer than anything else I have planned for my 5-year anniversary of this show. So I'll be diving into TGFC season by season, and maybe I'll make an episode talking about some of the side quests. So let's dive into season 1 of the G0ATFAC Corner. The first 4 episodes, Let's Play, Spin Cycle, Invaders, and Eat 'em Up, are standard reviews for the most part, not really having much to talk about that isn't already said. However, I will talk about the way they add a little world building to the series. The games clearly being parodies of their real-life counterparts, like Bonzi Kong being the GFC equivalent of Donkey Kong, and, of course, the company names do so as well, like 2600 Inc. and Entertainment System. But let's get back to the plot. From each game, our Goat Boy gains an item, and as time goes on, Glitch Kid begins to show their true colors, which is shown in the ending of Eat 'em Up. We then head into episode 5, Kill Screen / Let's Eat, where we get a proper introduction to the glitchy gremlin, and it turns out the events of Eat 'em Up were actually a ploy to get Glitch Kid's attention, and as their battle begins, Glitchy Glam uses his ambush tactics, while G0ATFAC takes advantage of the items he gained from the previous episodes, finishing the kid off with a power pill. But after his hollow victory, he spots NeoJock in the yard, and begins to try to fix him while starting a new episode talking about video game food. Which, now that I think about it, is kind of a weird concept. Next up we have episode 6, Cross Courts, where Rom tells G0ATFAC that he requires a little space so he can fix NeoJock, taking it to the checkpoint, an arcade / food spot where he does a review of tennis. A peeping Hem spotting the Caprahead's powers firsthand. Hashtag Does Stuff fun fact, Hem and NeoJock are the only main characters who, from what I know, are inspired by real people. Hem being created and based on Dasher, who's composed some tracks for the show and even had his own show on G0ATFAC's channel, which I might get to eventually, and NeoJock also composing various tracks for the G0ATFAC Corner, and being his own independent musician. Speaking of NeoJock, the band's fixed but won't boot up until G0ATFAC blows on his cartridge, which surprisingly isn't a euphemism, leading into episode 7, Game Jam, where, waiting for Rom to come back for further diagnostics, our duo decides to make a game in 72 hours, like a game jam, which leads to a bop of a musical number. After their stylings, they let the game compress overnight, but NeoJock ends up rushing the compression due to a sudden reddening in his eyes, leading to the game getting bad reviews, and Glitchy's returned with a mind-bugged NeoJock and Roman before stop-and-swapping G0ATFAC. Shifting into episode 8, Earth plus Y76P, weirdest title of the bunch, our newly liked Glitch Kid decides to dedicate a special episode to his origins, or at least what he believes are his origins. Now, this episode led to a lot of confusion for me involving both the backstory for the Goat Kids and their origins wouldn't be properly stated until the final season. So I'll wait till I get into Season 3 to talk about it. Now, the next two game reviews are actually on bootlegs, meaning we're going to see some fun stuff. We have episode 9, Time/Space, where the kid talks about Bonzi Kong 5 through space and time, based on the Donkey Kong bootleg of the same name. This episode dives into the crude and rushed nature of bootlegs, and I love that Glitch Kid is basically the bootleg zones to Goatface's Phalus in the movies. We then get into episode 10, Fight Night, where Hem plans on helping Goatface by spying on our glitch-coded friend, but he gets caught and is forced to play Drift Fighters, a play on Kart Fighter. But when Hem loses, he gets a taste of the Constant Contact on humans. Goat and Hem discuss a plan to get his body back, with Goat asking Hem to upload a video onto his channel, leading to the two-part finale, Grayscale. Ghostface, Hem, Sunset One, and Hem's foster brother Kevin put their heads together with the power of one of the greatest Goatface songs ever, Friend Request, which wouldn't have an FM video until several years later. Anyway, after kicking a very expensive generator, NeoJock is snapped out of his bugging, with Glitch Kid, along with Rom, using the Shard of Anarchy, turning him into Giga Glitch Kid. And thanks to the power of friendship, our Capri contender is given his solid form once more, and turned into Super Goat. And after some intense fighting and the repair of our robotic operating manager, Glitch Kid gets shot with a wave of rave, turning him back into his kitty self, and leaving Goatface to stop and swap him, ending the first season. But I'm not done quite yet. We end our season overview with side quest Anarchist. Look, I'm not gonna talk about this side quest in its own video, so I'm gonna be putting it with the season 1, so don't badger about this in the comments. A couple months after the events of the Giga Glitch Kid incident, Goatface and NeoJock are now living at the checkpoint, which is shown in grayscale, when suddenly a burst of light shows itself from near the wreckage of the old goat place. But as soon as Goatface touches the weird red energy, soon pops up Goat Floyd, who's there to steal the shard as well as their souls. This imp, as I mentioned, is Goat Floyd, an alternate universe version of Goatface who only appears a few times in the main series, and has his own spin-off called the Goat Floyd Corner. Anyway, Goat Floyd stomps our trio, both literally and figuratively, and the boys decide to try to pull off their best two-word plan. Shoot him, and then fist bump. Soon enough, Goodwill sends out his cronies Najak and Hyphener, which does not help the situation, as soon the three are dealt back and sent through the portal. And that was the first season of the Goatface Corner. And, you know what? Instead of my usual overview and rundown, you know what? I'm going to be doing something similar to my buddy Zand, and I'm going to be giving each episode a letter grade. Because I had to make this complicated. Let's play. A good first episode to show the early bumps and bruises of creating a review show. However, it can be a bit of a slog if you're seeing it on rewatch. B. Spin cycle. A bit of an improvement over the first episode with some of the goatisms that would be referenced in the future, but not much else to say otherwise. A. Invaders, in my opinion, the most boring of the Season 1 reviews, mostly due to nothing happening after a while. But NeoJock does kind of change it a little, in my opinion. D. Eat 'em Up, the best of the Season 1 reviews, including the beginning of Goatface's torment with the games being haunted by Glitch Kid, and a good lead-in to the next episode. A. Kill screen / let's eat. A good way of starting the tradition of the reviews becoming a side note in later episodes, and a good departure from the original format, being that Goatface does the review while repairing Neojock. A. Cross courts, a good introduction to Rom and Hem into the series, and showing that the Fabrosi isn't the only way of him going into games. A. Game Jam. Best non-review of Season 1, and not just because of the killer track that belongs to it. And yet another good lead-in to the Glitch Kit reviews. Wish I could give it a higher rank, but it is still an A. plus Y76P. Still one of the weirdest titles, and knowing what happens later in the series makes it a hit weird and not in the best way. C. Time / space. As I mentioned in the summary, it's a surprisingly accurate look into the bootleg games industry, and great foreshadowing for the finale. A. Fight Night. It's my favorite appearance of Hem, and a great transition to what would happen in the finale, but similar to Invaders, it's a bit of a slog during the review part. B. Grayscale. Including my favorite TGFC song of all time, the battle with Giglitch was decent, the characters were decent, just a decent finale for a decent season. AA. Anarchist. A pretty fun crossover between Roxy's two series, before GT was a thing. And it may just be me, but Goat Floyd is too annoying for me to give this anything other than a B. Overall, GTFC's first season gets an A, with the Darius Does Stuff stamp of approval. Check it out if you have time. Next time, we'll be delving back into the world of Pokemon by delving into the second chapter of Midnight's Kanto Journey. With that said, I'm Darius Does Stuff Elam. Daring to review is what I do, and that's game!